going to help you learn how to design a boutonniere. We're going to do the traditional ones that kind of hang out on the coat pocket instead of in the pocket itself. We're going to do the boutonniere that is going to be similar to the bridal bouquet. So we're using similar flowers, colors, but it's going to be on a much smaller scale. But we're going to use a ranunculus, some greenery, and some filler flowers, again, to kind of pull in what the bridal bouquet looks like. My ranunculus today is a little bit sad, and so I like to give it a little bit of extra support. So I'm using a 22 gauge floral wire. I'm just gonna run it through the middle. I also have a hook here where it kind of hangs out and stays secure into the bloom. It gets tucked in nice and deep, so that way it's not something that anyone is seeing. But it does give that extra support. And then I'm gonna wrap it around, and then I'm gonna take my floral tape that's not sticky. It's the one that is made to basically hide your mechanics. And why we're doing the extra support here for the ranunculus is that the stem is a little just not as strong as I want it to be. I don't want it to flop in the design. And so we're just gonna pull this nice and tight. And we're gonna be gentle, we're not gonna be super harsh with it. I like to wrap a little bit more than what I need. Floral tape gets a little twisted sometimes. It's pretty normal. So you just kind of check in with it, unravel it, or get to it before it ravels. But you just kind of pull nice and snug. Not sure if you can see it maybe against my shirt. It's a little bit easier to see. I might choose to go back up. I'm gonna cut this down because I'm certainly not gonna do a boutonniere that's that long. And so I'm gonna, since I've kind of come to the bottom with this, I'm gonna come back up to give a little bit of extra support. All right, that's feeling good. What I love about this floral tape is that it's kind of sticky, and so it kind of stays where you put it. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stem away and take my wire cutters and cut that wire away. So now we have a lovely bloom that's nice and sturdy. It kind of depends on your boutonniere and kind of how you want to do it. And in regard to like what flower greenery you choose first, but what I do is I want everything to be at a binding point, and I want, this is what's going to be seen. Okay, so we want to create a binding point, and mine is where my fingers are connected here, and I'm going to kind of play around with it, see what it looks like. Maybe I'm looking in a mirror if you're not recording yourself, and kind of see what it looks like. It can be as full or as minimal as you want. So we're just gonna play around with it. A lot of times it's kind of trial and error, but it is also about what look you're trying to achieve. If your wedding that we're designing for is a little more, wild, we want more wild elements. If it's more simple and minimal, we want more minimal elements. I'm gonna do this pop of yellow because this is something that the bride has. So I've kind of got a little bit of something here on the side. I've kind of, instead of having just greenery behind it, I kind of like doing it to the side. It gives it a little bit more interest, a little bit more asymmetrical. I might use other blooms as well. You can choose to, once you have kind of this form, you could choose to go ahead and wrap these stems so they stay together. As you add more blooms, maybe it goes down. Just for the interest of showing that, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it right above my binding point because I want my greenery and my little filler flower and my ranunculus to hang out exactly where I put it. And so I'm going to start my tape right where the binding point is. So another reason you want to connect some of these pieces together is so that way you can have less bulk in the stem. So I've connected these. I'm gonna take away these other stems here. I don't need them. I like to cut it at an angle so it's kind of going down at an angle instead of just one hard chop. And then I'm gonna hide that mechanic, or excuse me, the stems, and then I'm done. Okay, so now I still only have this one long piece, even though I have these other pieces. The bulk is at the top there, okay? I'm wanting to add a bit of blue. I'm considering adding more greenery. We'll just have to see. I mean, you certainly could add greenery this way, like upside down instead of right side up, and so that way it has a little bit of interest there. I think that sounds fun, so I'm gonna do that. Again, it's kind of the style. You wanna make the bouquet, you wanna make the boutonniere similar to style. I don't need that stem complete, so I'm gonna cut this stem off a little bit because it's not gonna hang out that far, but I don't wanna cut it down too far because I want the ability to wrap that up into my floral tape so that way it stays where I want it. I like this idea. It's fun. I want to use this blue because this was the pop of blue that was in our bouquet. And you're going to take your snip. You're going to be using your snips a lot because they, because they're going to help you to get only the blooms in this that you need. I'm trying to decide if I really want that down there. Kind of not. Kind of liking it. Maybe pulling it down a little this way. And I have this too, and I just don't know. Do we want it a little bit further down here? Kind of like that. Don't want to take away from the ranunculus. We don't want to put our blooms too tight together. Looks great. Kind of paired all of the elements that are in our boutonniere, or in our bouquet. I feel like my yellow's kind of gotten hidden a bit, so I kind of want to bring up another piece that's a little bit taller here, and that looks done. Do I want any Eryngium? Not Eryngium, excuse me, Hypericum berries. Maybe we do, might not need that extra texture since we have so much texture here. So we've kind of got everything at the binding point. I'm removing any greenery that is below that binding point because it's just gonna get in the way. We don't wanna make the boutonniere really bulky. Do a check, do we like the way that looks? Looks pretty good to me. Still feel like maybe a little more greenery, is that too distracting? So you kind of just play around with it. I don't want too much greenery because the bouquet didn't have too much greenery, so we're gonna kind of stay with the same elements. I'm done, so I'm going to put my tape at the binding point here. Okay. Try to hold those pieces together. It can be a little tricky if you haven't had a lot of time to play with floral tape and working with little stems, but the trick really is to go slower until you can get faster. Pull it tight. It's pretty sturdy. It's kind of got an elasticity to it. All right, so I've got those connected. I don't want all this bulk though. So I'm going to, again, cut these things at an angle. Okay, kind of at varying lengths so that way it kind of gradually gets smaller. I'm definitely going to choose to cut the stem of the ranunculus down a bit too. So we're just twisting, pulling tight here. Okay, that's looking good. More often than not, let's get our scissors. More often than not, you are going to choose to wrap this boutonniere with a ribbon or some twine, whatever the vibe is. So if it's more elegant, you're going to want to use ribbon. If it's more earthy, have more of those earth natural tones, you're going to use a twine. You can kind of play around with what you want to do. So I don't want this to be this long stem. I probably want it to be about right here. And so I'm going to take my wire cutter, because remember, I have wire in there. And if it can cut wire, it can cut stems, right? And just kind of tuck that in. We're going to use pins to adhere this to. You can also use some of that U-glue circles or little strips. Those work also. But this is a really good way to do a boutonniere. And I kind of love how it turned out. It's very similar to the bouquet we made. It has the similar elements and textures and color schemes. So, looks pretty good. Hopefully you can create something pretty awesome like that too. Simple. Thanks.